Hola amigos, pero no, y saludos desde Medellín. Hoy en clima poco diferente, so este video puede ser un poco corto, pero el tema de hoy, como si nosotros tenemos mejor conversaciones, claro, puede mejorar nuestra fluidez. Entonces, ¿cómo puedo hacer conversaciones en una forma que pueda ayudarnos más? Ese es el tema de hoy. So, hello from Medellin. As you may note, the weather's a bit changeable, so this might be a short video, but we'll see. Theme of the day, conversations. Clearly, conversations are the only way we're going to improve our fluency. We need to have more conversations to do that, to practice, to listen to the language, to speak with people. But how can we do this in a way that helps us improve our fluency? How can we get the most out of our conversations? Let's have some thoughts about that. So, ideally, if we know beforehand some of the things we want to talk about, that's where our kind of preparation comes in. It might be that we need to have remembered a few key phrases or just revise some of that vocabulary for that particular situation. So let's say if we're back on our holiday again and we're going through the airport, just to refresh our memory on what those key phrases were about, yes, I have a visa and here's my passport, something like that. But if we're having more detailed conversations with people, let's say we're at that kind of dinner party, a lot of this is down to active listening. So to begin with, just listen to the general trend of the conversation. If there's more than one person, it could be tricky to follow. So wait until you understand roughly what everyone's talking about. And then ask questions. If you ask questions rather than opting for giving your own statements, you're going to get a lot more out of the conversation. Because by using questions, you can help to steer the conversation in a way that makes more sense to you, and you invite the other people to talk more. So that gives you another chance to listen, and you don't get put under stress of being the only one that has to answer the questions or have something to say. So, active listening, lots of useful questions. So clearly, practicing forms of questions, nice open questions, which we looked at before, something that allows the person to expand on their answer, not just answer yes or no, something that invites them to give you lots more information, and literally something that gives them to tell you more about that. Because the more we listen to, the more we understand, and then we're more involved in the conversation. So be an active listener, ask lots of useful questions. When it is your time to talk, don't feel that you need to give very long answers, in the sense that answer part of the question and let the other person ask you a follow-up question. Let them ask you another question. Don't feel you need to give all the information in one go. So let's say you're asked to describe something about your trip or the whole journey to where you got to the country. Don't feel you need to tell everything all at once. Start with the first part and let them ask you a question about the second or third part of the conversation of the journey. So keep your answers brief, ask more questions, listen more actively to work out what the general conversation is about. And if you're not sure at any point, remember our special phrase, I'm sorry, could I ask you something? And then ask them the question. Something like, oh, I'm sorry, Bob, can I ask you something? I'm not sure what you meant when you just said, could you explain that? And let them explain it. So, using that type of approach saves you from having to be the person doing all the speaking. This is the key thing. We don't want to have to feel that we, as the new learner of the language, have to do all the work. Let the native speakers do that bit. Really, at this point, our job is to show that we've understood what was going on, say something reasonably appropriate, hopefully ask an occasional question that's interesting, but don't feel embarrassed to ask a challenge question, to ask for more explanation or clarification. Because it might not just be you that didn't understand what they were saying. So have a go at that. Active listening. Ask some interesting questions, try and steer that conversation. Ask for clarification, and when it's your turn to speak, don't say too much. Be brief. Let them ask you a second question. So, with that said, and before the storm arrives, from Medellin today, we'll say cheerio.